So a few months ago, I put out a piece of shock content in which I said it's Israel behind everything. And I want to explain to you where that came from and why it's a little bit wrong. And I want to help you understand what it is you're seeing in the world, at least through the lens that I have. So make up your own mind and do your own research. Download all of the apps necessary to dig, because digging is fun, learning is fun, and I encourage everybody to do the same. So this is what I call the blue shift. I mean, it's not what I call, it's actually a documented term to describe the pattern in which the Democrat candidate overtakes the Republican candidate on election night, well, subsequently the morning after or the weeks after. This pattern started arising in 2004. So by 2013, they coined the term to substantiate the definition of it, and then they began using it in the media, preparing the public for what was about to happen, and it happened all over the country. 2020 is the best example of it, but it happened all over the country. And most notably, in the early days, 2010, Kamala Harris was down on election night, and it took weeks for them to find enough votes to get her across the line. And these razor-thin margins were happening everywhere, and Democrats were winning. So this term, the blue shift, substantiated the pattern that had arose from 2004 elections, which is when machines were installed and the Help America Vote Act was really enforced, which is what gave us the tremendous election reform we've seen over the past 20 years. And the way that this election reform, mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, voter roll, voter IDs especially, the way that they enforced it is through lawsuits, the private sector, and through control of our Department of Justice. The Obama administration, Eric Holder's Department of Justice, actually sued states into compliance. But most Democrats in Democratic states just went along with all of this in order to push ahead this blue shift machine. And I call it a machine because it's really like this massive mechanism that requires a lot of moving parts. Mail-in ballots are just one of them. Machines are just another part of this. The technology behind the machines it's pretty important to understand that all kind of monopolized right around 2003. So all of these elections arise around our country, and these blue shift beneficiaries start taking place. And our country has inorganically gone blue over the past 20 years. You can't deny this. This is, again, my findings, or what I'm discussing starts in the 2004 elections. Okay, and a lot of things in our country changed around that time. Well, what I started finding was that at the bottom of the lawsuits and the propaganda that was being pushed, because I've just read and dug into articles and paid attention to who's writing the articles per se, who it's benefiting, and it all kind of comes here. And this pattern began to arise throughout my investigation. It was a new lens once I figured out I needed to place this next to the culprits. Who's doing this in the government? Who is pushing this and that? And then the communist symbol as well. They both serve the same agenda, which is this blue shift machine, the democratic, inorganic push of our country into this crazy leftist world, this authoritarian but is lying to you about everything world that we live in, that the secular world these people have been in charge of for a long time. And so I began digging into the billionaires and these NGOs, which this article on the wall is from a non-government organization that was funded by billionaires, which is where all of this really leads, is when you dig into where does the money for these law firms come from? Where do these lawsuits come from? Where does the funding for these non-government organizations come from? It's billionaires. A lot of the times it's billionaires and their philanthropy organizations. So there's something in common there, but it all leads to the financial system. And this is where I say I was wrong, and it's not about just Israel. Israel is actually a smaller part of the larger organization, which is the British Crown Financial Empire, which is a very confusing thing, because that Crown Financial Empire, the Bank of London, the Rothschilds, they use these names, references to their banks, like the Federal Reserve, to make it sound and really resonate with the person, the British person or the American person, and you don't really think beyond the name. You're like, that's a part of my country. When in reality, the financial apparatus is the occupation, and they slowly started overtaking Britain in the late 1600s and then overtook our country early on. When I was first digging into this, I really wasn't looking at and comparing the history of our country before the early 1900s, but it's very important to understand the history of our country, like the entirety. because like I said, this financial empire began overtaking the world in the late 1600s, and it started in Britain. So over time, these past 250 years, they have used this financial empire to move the world in the direction that they want it to go. Wars are just a tool in this overall restructure of the world, their agenda. And they use people to get this agenda accomplished. And they attach people to some very, very emotional imagery, or stories that they've curated. And when I say that, I mean they've written history. This has to be very overwhelming for someone who's just waking up to, like, something's not right here. Well, it's our history is false. The Britannica Encyclopedia is perfect example, and it coincides right when this financial empire started overtaking our world. Anyways, they have a large interest in controlling elections around the world. And Donald Trump has a huge interest in breaking us free from their stranglehold, the hold that they have on all of us. We all feel the financial system is the weapon against the people. It's the enslavement system. It's very important that they maintain control over this massive amount of money that is generated by our country. And they keep churning the money and treating us like tax cattle for reasons of generating more and more taxes to feed their system. And they enslave us through their mental gymnastic propaganda, which is extremely good. It's extremely good. Trust me, I was a part of that secular society for 20 years. I was a Southern white boy, and I somehow ended up into being every secular music culture that they offer, and it's just filled with fleeting pleasures and drugs, a lot of drugs. Anyways, let me get back on track here. Who would offer and subvert our country like this? And it's the Crown British financial empire that is that, like that's where that comes in. That comes in because that's the head of the snake, at least the control of that image and that symbol. Think about not very religious Jews that call themselves Jews, don't act Jewish very much. Non-religious Jews have tied this into the hearts of a lot of actual Jews. And then you can see that pattern kind of arise everywhere, especially when it comes to communism and these idols that they offer in this music industry that they've curated for us. This is not a music industry. This is social programming through repetition. Music, if you expand your mind into something that doesn't have the modern day chorus, song structure, the algorithmically correct song structure, if you expand your mind from that, the rest of your mind will start to open up. You have to listen to stuff that doesn't repeat, and it unlocks an area of your brain that's been locked up, and you just start to use your brain more. And that music they offer is pacification. It's pacification and infantilization of our society, because the music they offer, and this is where I am pleading with these country, modern day pop country people, fans, is like, you are listening to adult children's music. I'm sorry if that hurts, but you are listening to adult children's music. And that's what I hear when I see you just idolize these things and like chase the nostalgia. It's because they introduce this sound into your childhood. So your childhood and the rest of your life resonates with it. And then they have control over your emotions, and they are controlling you by offering you fleeting pleasures in that culture. And they use sex as a symbol everywhere, and it's just not right. And they're doing it to women en masse, and it's just not right. And I'm watching all these women live these absolutely unhappy lives, and they're lying on the surface about who they are. And men as well. We can't do it anymore, bro. They've been white genociding us with this shit. We have to become good. I mean, good. What the white person is supposed to be. These people at the top that are orchestrating everything, they don't like white people. And this has been an attack on white people. And it's been going on a lot longer than most people will begin to realize. Like the last 60 years is something, but it ain't nothing. It ain't. What they've done to us with immigration and cultural subversion is just the tip of the iceberg, because you look at who orchestrated the World War I, World War II countries, the narrative attacking the white people in Europe, in Germany, that were standing up to this transgender radical left, extremely anti-white, anti-family agenda that was being pushed on them. And that's what they lied about, is why did Hitler and the people rise against that system? And who came up with the term Nazi? It came from journalists, Jewish journalists in the early 20s, to label the people that oppose this agenda. They label them racist and Nazis. They use that term as a psychological warfare term to justify the violence against the natives that opposed the agenda, the godless, atheistic agenda. It's happening right now. But this pattern didn't just arise first in Germany. This was from the South. They lied about the Civil War. And go to the Britannica Encyclopedia and start digging around and see what they've lied about. And they lied about the Civil War and got the North so radicalized against these racist Southerners, which were just trying to break free from this British financial empire. That's what it was a war for independence from the British financial empire that was imposing tariffs and taxes on their cotton and tobacco. Their imports and exports were getting targeted by the financial empire, the federal system, which is just a tool of the financial empire. The federal system was installed into our country, and that's why it always seemed like it's not serving the interests of the people. They serve themselves. They serve the banks. They serve the people in a foreign land that are controlling and manipulating our world. And you can see it as clear as day happening right now in LA. And the fact is that Karen Bass's last election is a blue shift operation. They have subverted our people, opened our borders, while simultaneously squeezing people out of other countries by installing a mechanism that they came up with called communism. They came up with this mechanism of communism to subvert real Christian nations, white Christian nations that don't need their system. They created this communism mechanism to overtake countries around the world and squeeze the people out while opening the borders here. I'm from Miami. People always second guess that. And they're like, whoa, really? And I'm like, yeah, man, I was born and raised there. And my heritage is down there. Hialeah was a white outlaw place. That's where the outlaws went. That's where people from like Tennessee, the outlaws from the South, they ended up in Hialeah, Florida, which is, if you look at it now, it's just Cuban. Everything's Cuban. We were replaced. That's my point. This isn't just some isolated story. I know there's those people are out there. I know you're out there. Wake up to what they're doing to us, because they're stealing our way of life. They have stolen our way of life, but we're not fucking dead. We ain't fucking dead. And it's time to take this seriously and realize we need to be the best we can be. We have to take control of our own lives. It's not easy to admit lies that have impacted your life. It's not easy to admit that you've lied to yourself about all kinds of things. You've littered your life with addictions and avoided any kind of physical fitness for years. It's time to put that life and that era behind you, because I believe that is exactly what is happening in our country, is Donald Trump is putting that era from the British financial empire behind us. Whoa. Where is the Southern spirit? Because the closest I've ever really felt to it is January 6, 2021. We, the people, 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 we, the people.